It's Bonnie here. Um, how's everybody doing? I hope everybody is doing well and trying to stay as safe as possible and as healthy as possible, and just dealing with this situation to the best of their ability. I introduced myself last week. Um, my son, Timmy, in 2014, had to have a bone marrow transplant. So when he had his bone marrow transplant, we had to be in self isolation for a period of almost a year. And so, in dealing with that situation, I learned a lot, and my publisher thought it would be a good idea for me to share what I've learned with you guys. So, that's what I've decided to do. Hi, Gary. Good to see you. But I'm going to give everybody a few minutes to get on and get here with me and watching. Last week I started this, and last week I talked about how important it was to focus on our gratitude and all the things that we have to be grateful for, because we have, I don't care what you're dealing with, you always have something to be grateful for. And I tell the kids all the time, like in my worst days and my worst moments, I start with I'm grateful for running water and I'm grateful for my bed and my blanket and my pillow. But we always have something to be grateful for, somewhere to focus our gratitude. And then I talked about feeding our faith and how important it is to find ways to feed your faith and stay off the news and stay off of Google, and get enough information that you know what's happening and you can be wise, but don't spend every waking minute of your day listening to all of the this may happen. Hi, Judy. Hi, Christy. Good to see you. Hi, Carolyn. But try not to spend every waking minute feeding all of this could be's and possiblies and maybe speculation into your brain, because right at this moment I don't think anybody knows what's really going on. We're all doing the best we can with what we've got. And then the other thing we looked at last week was the only thing that you control, hi Charles, is yourself. The only thing that you have any control over right now is how you are going to respond to the situation. Hi Jeanette. You can't control anybody else. You can't control how anybody else is going to respond. You can only control you and yourself and how you are going to respond to the situation. So that's a recap of last week. Hi Todd. This week, I was thinking, as I was preparing for this week, I recalled a conversation. Let me back up a little bit. First, I was thinking about, hi Leslie, how for many years of my life I struggled with the existence of God and religion. I struggled with religion for a lot of different reasons. Hi Lori. I talk about this in detail in my book, but I struggled. One of the reasons I struggled with God is people is hypocritical and judgmental. Hi guys, it's good to see you. Look, everybody's logging on and waving. That's great. I hope everybody's doing really well with everything that's happening and trying to stay safe. That's a big thing, is do your best to take care of yourself and be healthy. But going back to so I struggled with religion and whether or not God exists for a lot of years in my life. And one of the reasons was everybody's hypocritical, or no, I shouldn't say everybody, but I had experienced a hypocritical and judgmental attitude by a lot of religious people. And so that caused me to struggle with this whole God thing. I'm happy to say now that I've experienced God in a way that he's as real to me as the wind or gravity or love. Like, none of us have we can't see the wind, we can't see gravity, we can't see love, but we know they exist because we see the effects of what they do, right? So that's kind of where I got to with God. Like, I might not see him physically, but I see the effects of what he does, and I felt the effects of what he does. So for me, that's where I came to the proof of his existence. I remember a long time ago, or right around the time Timmy got sick, I was having this conversation with somebody, and I was talking to them about the events of my day, and I don't remember if Timmy was already sick or what was happening, but I just remember having this conversation. I was talking about the events of my day, and as I was talking about the events of my day, it was all of a sudden I realized that I was complaining about the events of my day. And as I'm hearing myself complaining, it was as if somebody tapped me on the shoulder and said, if you truly believe that this is the day the Lord has made, and that the Lord is ordering your steps, and that God uses all things for good, then you shouldn't be complaining about your day, because complaining about your day only means you're complaining about God. And for those of you who aren't familiar with, sorry about that, I just got a phone call. Those of you who aren't familiar with the scriptures that talk about this, in Psalms 118:24, they tell us that this is the day that the Lord has made. I'll rejoice and be glad in it. And then in Proverbs, it doesn't say that that all the events of the day are good. It just says that it's the day that He made, and you're gonna find a way to rejoice in it. You're not rejoicing about the events. You're rejoicing about having the day, right? And so God woke you up this morning. He gave you breath. You're not rejoicing about what's happening. You're rejoicing about the fact that you have another day to be a part of this world. Proverbs 16:9 says, we can make our plans, but the Lord determines our steps, which before my son got sick, I had like 3 calendars, and I could tell you what I was doing 3 months in advance. I knew when I was going to work out, what my workout schedule was going to look like, what my overtime schedule was going to look like, where I was going. Everything was all coordinated and ready to go. But once my son got sick and we ended up in the hospital, all that changed. I realized that I have no idea what I'm doing from one minute to the next, and all I could do was go with the flow. And then in Romans 8:28, he says, and we know that God causes everything to work together for good of those who love God and are called according to His purpose. So if I truly believe all these things, if I truly believe what the Bible tells me, then, and I'm doing my best to understand what God wants for me in my life, then I shouldn't be complaining about my day, because the Bible tells us that God is doing the best He can with what the world gives them with my day, right? And so God's ordering my steps, God's preparing my day. I shouldn't be complaining. Okay, so from the time that I had that realization, I started to really choose my words wisely when I discussed my life, right? No, my son's not sick anymore, Britt. He's healthy now. It was in 2014. He had a bone marrow transplant. But he's all better. He's 100% now, which is great. But from that time, when I had that realization that it doesn't help to complain about your day, and I think about what we're facing right now, I get really kind of frustrated with with people who get stuck on the why is this happening and whose fault is it questions. Like, none of us know why it's happening. When my son was sick, when he needed the transplant, like, it didn't matter why. All that mattered is what we were facing. But as I started to really think about that, as I started to really think about people's questions of why is this happening, I got reminded of a story in the Bible where Jesus is with a man who he's been blind since birth, and people are asking Jesus, like, why is he blind? Is it because of his sins or somebody else's? And Jesus is like, you guys are missing the point. He didn't say those words exactly, but he says, it doesn't matter who sinned. It's not, first of all, I find it kind of silly that they're asking if the guy sinned when he was blind since birth. But he basically looks at him and says, you're missing the point. It's not about who sinned. It's about God's glory coming from him being healed, right? So I feel a lot of times that we miss so much because we're focused on, hi, Danny, we're focusing on the wrong thing, right? In my son's case, he had a really random illness, so it wasn't anybody's fault. Like, the why of why he got sick didn't matter, right? It wouldn't change anything. All that really matters is what he had and how we were going to treat it, right? And what good can come out of it. It doesn't matter why we're dealing with this coronavirus. Hi, John. It doesn't matter why we're dealing with this coronavirus. All that matters is what good can come out of it, right? What are we going to do about it, and what good can we bring out of it? So once the doctors knew the illness that Timmy was facing, once they were able to establish that he had aplastic anemia and he had this thing called PNH, and we had a donor, so we knew who his donor was going to be. The doctors were able to put a plan into place, right? And the plan that they were able to put into place, hi John, was a plan that was contrived from years of experience and lots of patients that they had dealt with, right? So they had time, they had the luxury of time and experience to create this plan. Whereas with this virus, they don't have that luxury. They don't have a luxury of time and experience. This is the first time that they're ever dealing with something like this, and they're making a plan off the cuff, right? And hi Megan. So we have to be patient with them. Like even my son's doctors who had all this years of experience in dealing with him, or dealing with this specific illness, they still didn't know how his body was going to respond to what was happening. So as his body responded to what they were doing, the plan changed. Every time we turn around, every time we thought we knew what was happening, something changed because his body was responding differently than what the doctors expected, or what other people's bodies did. So as good as the doctors are, they can't predict what exactly is going to happen next. So even in the best laid plans, they're going to change. I used to say all the time that God seems to have me on a need-to-know basis, and right now I don't need to know much. And as frustrating as it was true, right? Like I everything was going minute to minute and day to day, and it was all based on how my son would respond. And this illness or this virus we're dealing with is no different. It's going to be based on how we respond, how the people who are getting sick respond, how fast the doctors can find some sort of illness or some sort of way to treat it. Right now they don't have any way to treat it. They're just responding to it to the best of their ability. They don't have a way to combat it. So that makes it all the more difficult, right? So my first point for tonight is it's always important to have the ability to go with the flow, but especially in uncertain times. We have to be able to just go with the flow. In law enforcement, we call these situations fluid because they're constantly changing and they have the ability to evolve into anything, right? We do the best we can with the information we're given, the information that's available to us. And when that information is constantly changing, the plan has to change with it. So we can't really get too frustrated with the people who are doing their best to handle this emergency to the best of their ability, because they are only as good as the information that they have. And the information that they have is changing on a regular basis. I don't know if any of you read the blog that I wrote last week. But I talked about how hi George, I talked about how when Timmy was sick, one of the parts of the process of Timmy being sick is the doctors handing us this big huge pack of papers that had, that described what they were going to do in detail, and then told us like all the process and all the medication they would give him and all the possible responses to the medication, right? So, on TV you watch the commercials that say that this and this and this may happen, like all these possible side effects. Well, Timmy was getting like 20 different medications and all of them had a side effect, and one medication was to kill things and one medication was to help things, and I couldn't even read the packet because it was just way too stressful to think about all the things that could go wrong in this process, right? Um, but in essence, the doctors needed my permission to do these, to feed my son all these toxins that would kill his immune system, the current immune system he had, and kill the disease that was in him, so that they could make room for a new for his new immune system, right? And so they could protect the new immune system before it came in. You know, they had to kill everything in his body that was unhealthy so that they could make room for the new and the healthy, right? So as I thought about this, like I think about this now, of course, as I was going through it, you don't have a lot of time to process what's happening. You just kind of just go with what's happening, right? But as I think about this now, I think about, I love my kids more than I could even possibly explain to you. But I had to sign a piece of paper and say yes to a doctor giving my son a bunch of toxins that would kill what was living in his body and bring him to pretty close to death with all the chemo and medication and everything they gave him, so that they can make him healthy again, right? So in thinking about this, I think about that there are times where we have to be put in uncomfortable situations, and we have to be put through uncomfortable things to eliminate the unhealthy from our lives and bring in the more healthy things to our lives. So I don't know why a lot of things happen, but I feel like the uncomfortable times is only to make us stronger, right? So when all that was happening, I like to find ways. There were times where I would get lost in what was happening to me, right? And my problems, and I would start to get overwhelmed with the uncertainty of my life at that time. So what I did was I would take a step back and I would try to find other people to focus on, and try to find other people I could do good things for, or try to find other people I could help. So I would take my focus off of all those things that I couldn't control, because I had no control over what was going to happen next. And I started to put it on things that I could control, and helping other people, because it selfishly, it helped me feel better to help someone else, right? So I want you to find ways to take your focus off of yourself and turn it towards helping somebody else. Spread the love. The one thing that's stronger than Corona is love, right? And the faith, hope, and love is the only things we have left, or the strongest of all things, and love is the strongest, right? So I don't care what anybody says, but if anything can defeat this and what we are going through, it's going to be love. So, so that's my second point, right? I hope you guys are getting something from this. But so part of the overall plan of all of the stuff my son went through was getting us home as quick as possible. Our doctors, yes, spread the virtual love. Yes, do it from a distance if you can. Spread the love from a distance. That's why I do this, right? But the doctors wanted to get us home, right? They didn't like that we were stuck in this situation, and most of what we were going through, the doctors just wanted to get us home. They wanted to get us back to some sort of normalcy. They wanted us to at least not have to be stuck in the hospital or in Ronald McDonald House, because that's where we lived. Like, we went from the hospital to Ronald McDonald's house. And so the doctors wanted to help us to not be in that situation. And part of that was me being able to go back to work. The doctors, wanted to be able to let me go back to work. And so a couple weeks after his transplant, the doctors started getting really excited because he was responding really well, and his body was doing good things. So we started to make a plan for going home. Like, the doctor wanted to get us home. They didn't want us to be stuck there. They want us to get us home and get me back to work. And that was where his plan, the doctor, all the planning went towards that. Well, within a few days of the doctor saying, and I can't remember the exact time, but shortly after the doctor said, okay, Timmy's doing really great, we're going to go home, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, his body started to reject the transplant. And which I guess is normal. I guess it showed from what the nurses explained to me that him rejecting the transplant just meant his new immune system was awake and it was doing what it was supposed to do. But it was kind of scary because he was in a whole lot of pain and he couldn't get out of bed. And, well, he got out of bed to go to the doctor, but we went to the doctor and we went back to our little apartment at Ronald McDonald apartment, and he went back to bed, and we spent several weeks in laying in like a dark room while he went through the effects of rejecting the transplant and what the medications were doing to him. And the doctor kept trying to make a plan, and every time he'd try to make a plan, Timmy's body would do something different, and the plan would change, and the doctor would try to make another plan, and Timmy's body would do something different, and the plan would change, and it just kept reminding us that we had no control over what was happening. And this reminds me of this situation. I finally looked at the doctor. I said, stop making a plan. Stop. I don't want a plan. I just want to let this play out and let Timmy's body do what it's going to do, so that and let him decide, let his body decide what the plan is. And I feel like that's kind of where we're at with this coronavirus. I think that we need to just kind of settle into our new normal for now. And know that this too will end, like this too will end, and there will become a point where we'll have a new normal. But for the moment, this is our normal. So I feel like we just kind of have to settle in and let it play out, which isn't easy. It's definitely not easy. But it's important to remember that so often the events that are occurring are dictating the plan a lot more than the people that are making the plan do. The doctors didn't want Timmy's body to do all these negative things. The doctors were doing their best to make Timmy's body better, but Timmy's body decided something else. And right now, this virus is kind of determining the plan. And the best we can do is just kind of go with it until we have some way to fight it, right? Until we have some sort of treatment or it was over a year for me and Timmy, yes. Well, Timmy got sick May 31st. I found out he was sick. He had obviously was sick before that, but May 31st is when I took him to the hospital. He was in and out of the hospital until June 19th is when he received his transplant. In August, we were released from the hospital to go live in the Ronald McDonald House. And then we lived in Ronald McDonald House until November. We were supposed to go, and then we went home, and at home we still self-isolated until the end of April, beginning of May, the next year. So yeah, it was a long time. And in August, when we went to the Ronald McDonald House, they were excited. They wanted to send us home in September. But then Timmy's, started to reject the transplant. And then they started talking about us not being able to go home until January. Like they had decided by the way Timmy's body was responding that we had to stay in the Ronald McDonald House until January. But then, as Timmy got better, we were able to leave in November. So I kind of feel like I wish that they would give us like this far out date of when this might get better. And then if it gets better faster, then great, kudos to us, right? But I feel like right now we just kind of have to settle in and just adjust to our new normal and find things to be grateful for and feed our faith, not our fear, right? And just deal with it the best to our ability. Focus on how we're going to respond, not other people. When I choose to remind myself that for whatever reason, I'm exactly where I'm meant to be at that moment, it's a lot easier for me to stop asking God questions like, why is this happening? What do you want from me? That was like one of my big questions. That was one of my big questions when Timmy was sick. Like, what is it you want from me? Like, why am I here? What do you want from me? How do I make this better? And then, when will this be over? Was another, when is this going to be over? So when I was able to accept that for whatever reason, I am exactly where I'm meant to be for this moment, I was able to start asking him things like, who am I supposed to help? Like, who can I help in this situation? And what am I meant to learn? Like, what are you trying to get through to me in this situation? What can I learn? How can I become better? How can I become stronger when this is over? And then how can I make this situation more enjoyable? Like, what can I do to make it more fun? And just find ways to laugh and find the joy in what we were going through. So my 3 points for today are: go with the flow. Learn how to go with the flow. I don't care how much of a planner you think you are. The plans are all out the window. It's time to go with the flow. And take your focus off of yourself. Take your focus off of all those things that you cannot control. You can't control this situation, so take your focus off of that and find ways to help other people. And then remember that what's happening is going to dictate this plan a whole lot more than the people up there that are trying to tell us what the plan is. Who gets sick, how many people get sick, and all of that stuff is all going to dictate, and how people's bodies respond to what's happening. Like, all that stuff is going to dictate things a lot more than the people up there making these plans are going to. So the best that we can do is help them out by trying to stay home and stay healthy, because the more of us that stay healthy, the less issues we're going to have, and hopefully the shorter time frame we'll have for everything. I know with Timmy, had I taken him out into the world and I ignored all the doctor's suggestions on what I should do with Timmy, had I ignored all that, then I would have been stuck in that situation a lot longer, and Timmy probably would not be here right now. So sometimes the best that we can do is listen into the advice of the people who kind of know what's going on, and just stay safe, stay home, enjoy your family. One of the things that I realized, like, as I was thinking about coming, you guys, and I'm not doing a whole poor me, but first responders, some people who are not first responders are asked to spend more time with their family. That's what they're asking you to do. Stay home and spend more time with your family. But the first responders that are out there dealing with this situation are being asked to spend less time with their family. So think of them. And the nurses and doctors that are dealing with all this, keep all of them in your prayers as you find ways to enjoy your family. I hope you guys got something out of all of this. Yes, I wrote a book, Judy. I wrote a book. It's called Life Happens. So I changed this. I'm going to change this little event to Life Happens. So every week I'll do this. Every Monday at 7 o'clock I'll do this, and I'll talk about what I've been through and what I've learned in the process. I try not to give a lot of opinions. I just want to talk to you about what I learned through what I've been through, and try to help you guys as much as I can. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope to see you back next Monday at 7 o'clock. And please share this with as many people as possible. I'm already getting emails from people about how this is helping them deal with what they're dealing with. So I'm asking you to just kind of pass it along so that other people can get some goodness out of what's happening. I love you too, Megan. I hope you guys have a good week. Stay safe, stay home as much as possible, and find good things to do with your family. All right, I'll talk to you soon. Bye.